Welcome back to another episode of the Girl Boss Method podcast, hosted by myself, Ritu. So, tonight's call is all about supplements, fads, and facts. Now, I thought this would be an interesting one for us to revisit. I have within my training, within my nutrition training, I've covered supplements. And so I'm always thinking about these, especially when it comes to like the health and fitness industry. People often say that, they swear by taking X, Y, and Z, and it can get really difficult, especially when we're thinking about fads or facts. And then what actually equates as a supplement? Again, we know that there are industry, fads, if you like, businesses that kind of operate in a literal supplement format. They sell supplements as part of their effect or their reasoning behind creating weight loss and things like that. So again, whether it's meal replacements or shakes or juice fasting, there are many different companies that operate in that format, and they have this promise that they're going to give you weight loss or fat loss, or they're going to help you achieve a certain goal just by taking their specific supplement or what have you. But I think it's really important that we cover this from a more scientific, research backed, and evidence based format. So, some of the questions that we've had of recent in the check ins this week, we've had, how many supplements is too many, and why is creatine supplement essential? So, in terms of how many supplements is too many, rather than thinking about the quantity of what we're taking and trying to sort of overcomplicate the situation, I think it's really good to kind of strip back and go back to basics. Food and nutrition first. Again, if you are somebody that really doesn't want to take supplements, or you're on the other side where you are taking too many, it's definitely worth going to have your bloods tested. Here in the UK, you can get that done by your GP, or you can pay private companies that do that for you. And again, they will give you some more in-depth detail as to what you may be missing and what you might benefit from taking. Again, if you want to know a bit more detail in terms of, who I would recommend to go and get your bloods tested by, then by all means, you can message me and let me know, and I'll give you some really good recommendations for sure. But yes, again, why is creatine supplement essential? This one I feel like's asked lots, and probably because I bang on about it a lot as well. I actually ask you if you're taking creatine supplement, because I think it's just such a brilliant supplement to add to your your intake or your regime or your lifestyle. I feel like there's so many benefits. It's well researched, and I have a couple of recordings where I literally just talk about creatine. So I think, again, what you first need to identify is why you need supplements. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But this is all about finding out what you really need and what you don't need in order to reach your goals. So hopefully by the end of this training, we can cover that. And again, if we need to dive in and create some more specificity around what you need and how much, then again, we can have that conversation together in private. So supplements can help busy women manage health and fitness goals. And that's ideally why we're taking supplements, because it's not so easy to kind of, ensure, especially when you're on the go, and if you've got certain, dietary choices, or, there are some like religious or ethical reasoning by why you may exclude certain things from your diet. Again, it could just be personal preference. There may be an issue with actually obtaining some of the nutrients that we need. Okay. And even if you're somebody that eats everything, quite often being in a deficit, or maybe even trying to go really, really, clean and whole foods, and not ever taking any supplements, just purely by existing and living in England, unfortunately, you will be prone to some deficiencies. So all supplements are not created equal. Many are fads with limited beliefs. So we are going to talk about more of the fads centered around the sort of gym fitness industry, as opposed to some of these like weight management type supplements. Evidence-based choices are key. And again, these are going to be really important for, conditions like PCOS and, menopause, as we will all go through as ladies at some point of our lifestyles. And again, the high stress lifestyles as well. So there are some risks, and there can be some risks of unverified supplements. They can be contaminated. They may have poor manufacturing as well. Another thing that it's quite important is to know that, your supplement is third-party tested. So again, they will be verified by organizations like I've used here, Informed Sport, to ensure purity and effectiveness. The reason why I mention this and why Informed Sport exists is obviously that can be quite risky for athletes. So athletes that are required to be tested as part of their sports. I know this sounds crazy, but there have been athletes that have claimed to have failed tests purely by eating something in a restaurant. And it's just, again, it could be down to contamination of, the said food that they had in some ways. We all know that, food these days is not as pure as we'd like. It's grown in many different ways, and you have hormonal influences and all sorts of manner of things, for sure. So I think it's really just, again, if we take this back to our goals and what we'd like to achieve, when we're thinking about the third-party testing, they are ensuring that the supplements aren't, we're laced with things like banned substances or drugs, believe it or not. And also things like heavy metals as well. So again, that's basically, hopefully that answers that. When it comes to vitamin D, this is almost seen like the pro hormone for health. Okay. It's essential functions. So it supports immunity. Believe it or not, when you are down, especially this time of year, I know it's not been that cold, or it's going to start getting into drearier, horrible weather in the UK. We're at the end of October, and we've actually had some pretty good sunshine this month. When we're thinking about immunity, vitamin D is really important for helping support that. Okay. It's obviously important for bone health because it plays a role with calcium absorption as well. There's a role that it plays in insulin sensitivity. And again, this is something where we could relate this back to, PCOS, for example. And yeah, just bear with me. Yeah. So just letting one of the girls into the room. So insulin sensitivity and mood. So again, when it comes to mood, vitamin D plays a role within that as well. So when we're thinking about the challenges in obtaining enough vitamin D, we get very minimal from our diet. And it's actually really hard to get it from sun exposure as well, especially if you're sat indoors all day. Just sitting by a window is not going to allow you to get vitamin D in. And even if you were to go out for a walk, your skin has to be exposed. And this, again, when you're on holiday, it doesn't mean 3 to 4 hours sat in the sun. There'll be a certain tolerance level as well with absorption of or gaining the vitamin D. So again, you need to take, your time, go in, and so the idea is that you go into the sun for like maybe sort of 10 minutes of exposure, and then you'd come in and sort of have some time away from it. So it's a bit sensitive like that. And then when we're thinking about benefits, improved calcium absorption, reduced cardiovascular risk. And this is where I was linking it to the mood, but there's lower depressive symptoms as well. And there is research to show that it actually helps with, better results from fat loss as well, which I think is brilliant. if that isn't reason enough for us on this program. Okay. So another thing that I wanted to really highlight here, it was the idea again when we're kind of thinking of whole foods first, and I need to try and get everything that I need from food only, and I don't want to take supplements. There are times where you actually have no other choice. So I thought it would be really good to look at the difference between vitamin D intake versus vitamin C intake. It is literally almost impossible to get enough vitamin D from food alone. So if you are not supplementing and you're not out in the sun and you live in this country and you have a desk job, then it's really important that you kind of have a look at this information here. So I thought this was quite funny, actually, in some ways. But in order to reach a daily intake of 2,500 IU of vitamin D, you'd need to consume, in practically, a large amount of food. What does that look like? 6,250 milliliters of whole milk or 143 large eggs. Who's having that in one sitting? And then by contrast, with vitamin C, for example, and you've seen your parents do it, you've seen people always start dosing on extra vitamin C in the winter. It's actually much easier to meet your recommended daily intake of vitamin C. All you would need to do is eat 45 grams of broccoli, have one small green pepper, and maybe one small orange. Easy as that, right? So, then it sort of highlights really why you need to be taking vitamin D. So just as I go towards the next slide. We are going to talk about omega-3 fatty acid fish oils. So specifically here, we have some compounds, if you like, EPA and DHA. Again, these are long chain or short chain fatty acids. I can't remember which ones they are specifically now, but basically those are the ones where you are going to get the best benefit from. So again, when we're thinking about fish oil and we're, breaking down omega-3, it's the EPA and the DHA, which is important. And why is it important? Well, it's essential fatty acids for anti-inflammation, for cognitive health and heart health as well. Some of the benefits: it boosts your mood, it protects your heart, it reduces the inflammation, improves your strength, and may aid fat loss. So when we're thinking about dosage and interactions, I thought it would be really interesting or important for me to mention this. There are various different recommendations when it comes to daily intake. And a lot of that is down to the fact that we don't have enough research to specifically say this is what it is. But what we do know that you want to avoid it if you are taking warfarin or other blood thinners, because they can have a negative effect in some ways. And if you are taking warfarin, then that's something that you need to have. You need to have that conversation with your GP, basically, if you want to take the omega-3s. So let's kind of go for the sort of general recommended allowance. So as you can see, it's a range of 250 to 500 milligrams of EPA and DHA. And this is what the average woman would need. And if you wanted to have this in food format, you would need to have 2 servings of oily fish per week, such as salmon, mackerel, sardines, or trout. Now, myself, I don't consume fish, and I know that many of you ladies don't either. Some of you do, some of you don't. Again, whether that's personal preference or what have you. If we're not consuming sufficient oily fish, then a fish oil or a plant-based omega-3 supplement can be a practical alternative. So you want to ensure consistent omega-3 intake by doing that without the need to consume large amounts of fish. So again, that is another benefit. So why would we do it? Practicality. Whilst, yes, you can eat more fish to meet your omega-3 needs, it can be challenging for those of us with dietary restrictions, preferences, or even budget limitations. Fish can be quite expensive, right? And then when we're thinking about the purity and the concentration, now, again, people worry about things being meddled with, or, are they healthy? Are they safe? Well, in actual fact, by having a fish oil supplement, that can be a more consistent and actually concentrated dose of the EPA and DHA that we need. And then this could be beneficial for those of us that need higher intakes. And when it comes to the contaminant concerns, the oil supplements, the fish oil supplements, again, they are purified to remove the contaminants, for example, like mercury, which might be present in some fish. And again, that might be one reason why someone might not like to have fish, because of that. So yeah, supplementation can help. And for those of us veggie vegans, again, we've got the algae alternative of omega-3s. Again, reach out to me if you want some recommendations on that. Going to move on to caffeine next. And within this, there are quite a few supplements. There's a broad amount that I'm going to talk to you about. But caffeine, again, we look at it as a stimulant. We know that it boosts your alertness, but it can actually have an effect on your performance, your endurance, and your strength. So what are the performance benefits? It's muscle glycogen sparring, right? So you're going to have a faster reaction time, better strength, and lower perceived effort. So imagine with taking things like, having a shot of coffee before you go and train, or having that pre-workout, or whatever it is, that caffeine can almost sort of, it energizes you, right? It makes you feel like the session's not as hard and you can kind of push through. So yeah, we'll kind of go into that in a bit more detail when it comes to pre-workouts. But in terms of the risks, there can be a tolerance and dependency issue. So again, caffeine, you've got your coffee, your tea, your tablets, etc., but you've got to make sure that you're not over consuming and you're not relying on it. And again, when we're thinking about that, it's those people that have actually said that, and there are people out there that do this, and I didn't even realize this, but there are people out there that are having 5 cups of coffee a day plus. I'd say that 1, 2 are okay. If you're starting to have a bit more than that, it might be worth having almost a bit of a detox from caffeine. And then obviously once you sort of withdraw yourself from that, it can feel horrible, but you can start to rebuild, a level tolerance with it as well. Coming on to creatine, as I said, I've got a specific training on this, but the benefits for women, supports your cognitive health, your muscle strength, and your energy. And there is proven effectiveness, especially in preventing muscle loss as we age. So really important for us ladies in our 30s, 40s, and beyond. It's not just for muscle gain or just for men. It's extremely valuable for all of us of all different fitness levels, and even, I would argue, lifestyle health goals as well, for sure. Another one that you might not have heard of, or perhaps you have if you've been around the sort of gym circuit for a while now, but beta-alanine is a compound, again, that's often found in some pre-workouts. And this is, again, used for short bursts for performance. The primary benefits, it helps to reduce fatigue in high intensity activity, short duration activities. So again, it does this by buffering the acidity in the muscles. The side effects that you can get from it, tingling sensation on the skin. It can be safe. It's totally safe, but it can be uncomfortable. I've got a funny story that goes along with this. Years ago, I had never taken pre-workout, and I want to say maybe it was about 10 years ago. I've always been one of those that just maybe has a shot of caffeine and just gets on with it, or an energy drink. And actually these days, I don't really rely on any stimulants to help me train or to get the job done. But years ago, I like, you know, tried it for the first time and found myself actually almost relying on pre-workouts as a means or a way to get through sessions. And I was doing way too much training back then. So anyway, I met with one of my friends and we were going to go to the gym together. And the gym was roughly a 30-minute journey from their home. And went to my friend's house and he said, "Oh, I'm having a pre-workout. It's this cherry bomb, yada yada." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool." And he said, "Oh, I'm gonna have a shot. Would you how much do you want? Like a one or two shots or something?" And I said, "Oh, well, how many of you are you having?" And he said, "Oh, I'm having two." So he whizzed up in the blender two shots of this cherry bomb pre-workout that had beta aniline present. Now, had the shot, it was two servings. I was high as a kite and driving to the gym. All of a sudden, I experienced a very strange feeling. The only way that I can describe it was almost like ants were crawling up and down my body, like literally up my arms, up my neck, around my face. And I started getting really, really hot. And I couldn't believe that this was the side effect from having these shots. And I soon learnt my lesson. And he then asked me, "Have you ever had pre-workout before?" And I said no. And he said, "Well, in that case, maybe we should have given you like half a serving or something." I don't know if it was two servings, to be fair. It may have been only the one serving, but whatever it was, I was extremely sensitive to it and it was just hideous. And when I got to the gym, I had to literally run on the treadmill to try and disperse this horrible tingling sensation. It was horrible. But yeah, anyway, it can be beneficial for athletes in high intensity sports. So again, it's not really for everyday fitness, but I thought it would be worth mentioning, especially if you start doing research out there and you're trying to find out, you know, what's the best way to get the best out of your workout, and you start seeing, you know, pre-workouts, etc., you know, advertised to you online, or you come across it, then it might be something that you're interested in. So yeah, just bear that in mind. And, you know, if in doubt, send me a message and yeah, let's have a chat about whether or not you really need it. Or you're just trying to use it as a crutch for motivation. So BCAs, branch chained amino acids. So these are actually, they're three amino acids. They are leucine, isoleucine, and valine. And these are critical for muscle building. But again, they're kind of redundant if your protein intake is adequate. So what would be the purpose of having additional BCAs? It can be helpful if your protein intake is low, but it's not essential if you are getting enough complete protein. So that's the idea. It used to be, it was a belief before that, and again, it was almost like, this is why you shouldn't be vegan or vegetarian. Another myth. But it would be like, oh, well, you know, vegans and vegetarians, they have to pair their food to create complete proteins, and you know, they can't find many options and yada yada. Well, apparently things like rice and beans are complete, because that helps cover the, you know, the complete proteinness. However, our bodies are quite clever, and as long as you're getting the complete amino acid profile over the course of a day or a number of days, then you're totally fine. Again, if you are worried about this and you're generally sticking to a lot of the same foods, maybe you have some very sort of, you know, clean foods and you are plant-based, and you're not pairing things in a certain way because you're focusing on macronutrient complex as opposed to breaking things down into protein, then maybe some BCAs might be helpful to have as a drink on the side. And actually, for some of you ladies, I have recommended you having a small half serving of clear protein, whether it's the whey or the plant-based one, just to have as a nice drink with a meal, for example, especially if we know that meal's quite low in protein, it can be a helpful tool to use for protein pairing for sure. But BCAAs before used to be the recommendation to have them all day, throughout the day, but it's actually, as I said, it's redundant. Yes, it's redundant if protein intake is adequate, sorry, but it's also a hindrance that if you were to have BCAAs in your bloodstream, protein flowing through your bloodstream consistently, it's not doing you any benefit. You actually need to have protein levels come down. They need to come down. You need to then have a feeding for them to shoot right back up and to trigger something called muscle protein synthesis. We can talk about that in future at some point. It's not really very necessary for you to know. It can be, again, we can overthink things, right? But yes, let's move on to multivitamins. So multivitamins are more so seen as a nutritional safety net. You can ideally, I would say, use these when you're in a calorie deficit, or if you know that you might be prone to lacking certain vitamins and minerals. It's not a magic bullet. It may prevent deficiencies, but again, it will never replace a balanced diet. So you always want a balanced diet. But again, just thinking about this, if you are having protein powder, for example, supplementation, quite often some brands actually have multivitamins within them. You may find some vitamins or some additions to things like maybe some of the milk alternatives that you have. So there's many ways of making sure that we've kind of got that covered, but it's worth thinking about if you are in a deficit for sure, and especially like this time of year as well. So probiotics, it's another supplement. Why would we use it? So it's typically used for like gut health and weight management, and they can help. When can they help? They are effective for digestive health by enhancing the gut microbiota balance, or the gut microbiome. And this can help alleviate issues that you might be experiencing, like your bloating, your irregularity with actually going to the loo, and any sort of digestive discomfort. There might be some reason to believe that it may aid in weight management in women by increasing the leptin sensitivity. So you may have heard me previously talk about this, but we have two hormones that are responsible for our satiety levels, our hunger levels. Ghrelin, which sounds like gremlin, is the one that makes us feel hungry or hangry, and leptin is the one that makes us feel full. So if we are increasing our leptin sensitivity, then it might mean that we start to feel a little more fuller, right? We feel more satisfied. So again, will that then be an effect of having that hormonal increase, or the sensitivity is better of that fullness hormone, and therefore you're going to eat loss, and therefore it's going to help with weight management, right? So some strains of prebiotics have been shown to influence weight management, potentially through mechanisms like increasing leptin sensitivity. Leptin is a hormone that signals fullness, and improved sensitivity may help reduce overeating and aid weight loss efforts. Key, very key there, right? So moving on, again, when you're coming up to Google, you might see various different supplement options, especially when we're relating it to the gym. There's another one called HMB. This is more to do with sort of helping to preserve muscle in intense training, because when you are intensely training, you may be breaking down the muscle tissue, etc. So again, this is probably beneficial for people that are overtraining, and again, maybe more beneficial for athletes, or if you are somebody that is doing a lot of CrossFit, or you're training for a Hyrox, etc., and there's lots and lots and lots of breakdown going on, there's lots of training. So it reduces the muscle breakdown, and it's useful in intense training or overreaching phases. So the evidence, well, it may aid in preventing muscle loss during high stress resistance training phases. But again, it's not essential. We don't need that. Then there's other things. So sertraline may enhance blood flow and endurance. But again, this needs more research for effectiveness. Do you need it? Is it a waste of money? Believe it or not, sodium bicarbonate as well. So again, buffering lactic acid in high intensity training, mainly beneficial in specific sports. So this will be stuff that athletes take. And I've just popped this stuff in here because I think it's just really important to kind of cover as many bases as we can with this. Pre-workouts, often a waste of money. There is limited proven benefits beyond the caffeine boost, if I'm honest. And there might also be a bit of a placebo effect. So sometimes creating a ready to go mindset, but often the real boost comes from the caffeine alone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I personally do. So again, look, most performance supplements aren't necessary for your general fitness goals, other than the ones that I've mentioned that you probably should take. So vitamin D and omega-3 supplementation, for example, and caffeine if you feel like you need it. But when it comes to training, for me, some of the things that I have done is having an espresso shot. And again, I would probably say that this is better earlier in the day because you don't want it to affect your sleep later. If I have been training in the afternoon, the evening, late evening, believe it or not, and I need to go and get my session done, I know some of you have to train in the evening after the kids are asleep. Something like a beetroot or ginger shot, again, creates that association to being ready to go. So that it helps that mindset shift. Ginger shots, absolutely love it. Again, that is another one that I've used in the past, just by going, right, this is the action, I'm ready to go. And that's the thing, that's all we need sometimes, is that signal within our brain to say, right, exercise is going to happen, but these are the words that are gonna, or these are the actions that are gonna kind of like get the mindset, get the motivation, get the, you know, the flow to kind of go to get on with it. So yeah, I think like ginger shots, beetroot shots, they kind of have a bit of a kick to them. It might make you feel like you're ready for action. So that's my little tip there, personal tip. So the key takeaways here really is focusing on what matters. So stick to the essentials. Focus on vitamin D, omega-3, creatine. I'm going to say that again. Please watch the creatine videos if you haven't done already. Probiotics as well, if needed for your gut health. Admittedly, the gut health scenario, things definitely start to change, and there can be more like bloating, etc., especially as we hit the sort of peri or menopause or even post. This again might be an area that you need to consider, right? But just in terms of that, just bear in mind the responses to probiotics can be influenced by a variety of things. So again, just your diet itself, your lifestyle, like the stresses as well. We all know that the gut is like almost like a second brain. What your baseline gut microbiome composition is like, believe it or not. And then, yeah, there are different strains out there, and, what's been tested and what hasn't as well. So really, ideally, if you are going to take a probiotic and you want it to be effective, you want to combine it with a balanced diet and regular exercise. Regular exercise is really going to help you. Again, you can't just think I'm going to take a probiotic and that's it. It's not going to give you a direct weight loss effect. It's ideally it's triggering some sort of hormonal response as well, potentially. So yeah, avoid unnecessary fads. So again, the BCAs, unless there's a really big issue with the protein, maybe you've bought some BCAs because again, we're going to talk about this soon. Actually, we'll do a topic on one of those BCAs, the leucine. I think that's a really good one to talk about for sure. Yeah, so sodium bicarbonate, etc. These are not going to provide you any unique benefits. And then when we're thinking about quality control, we want to look at things that are third party tested. So here in the UK, we have Informed Sport. The Americans have the NSF. But other ones that we have in the UK, we have Labdoor, another one for Europe, includes the Euros, the UK, Eurofins, HFL Sports Science. Again, some of these, again, there are different organizations, but I think the idea is that if you are buying a product, I think personally, just if you're really concerned, like, reach out to these companies, speak to them, ask them, if they are third party tested. So some of the ones that I can tell you that are MyProtein, Bulk, Optimum Nutrition, PhD Nutrition, Science and Sport, SIS, Grenade as well. So again, these are all the big companies. And one that, again, that I've been using recently, which is more of a plant-based one, Vivo Life. So although they're not, done by Informed Sport, they are third-party tested, and their issue is just ensuring that their plant-based ingredients are clean and they're tested for any sort of, heavy metals and contaminants, etc. So yeah, it's just, you want to make sure that you are ensuring that whatever you choose, it's tested, right? Anyway, any questions, etc., let me know. Send me a message in the group as well. But that will be all for now, ladies. Thank you so much for those of you that have listened today. And if you've just stumbled across this podcast, then you can DM me or message me on Instagram at Ritu Bra. And yeah, we'll see you here next time.